Welcome to Revelation Unraveled. I'm your host, William Tapley, also known as the third eagle of the apocalypse and the co-prophet of the end times. I'm not covering any really new ground on this program, but I want to ask you a very important question, and that is, will you be captured or will you be raptured? As those of you who follow me on these programs know, there are four groups who will reign with Jesus during the millennium. And the question is, will you qualify? As you should understand by now, we have already entered the 7 years of tribulation. Please do not listen to the false prophets who say you have to wait until the Antichrist signs some kind of covenant or peace treaty with Israel. That is totally unscriptural. The 7 years of tribulation is something like a final exam. And when you pass this exam, then you graduate into the millennium. Remember Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. When they were in the fiery furnace, it was heated 7 times hotter than normal. That 7 times hotter refers to the 7 years of tribulation. And what must you do to qualify and to pass this examination? It's very simple. All you really need to do is to refuse to take the mark of the beast. Now, in the book of Revelation, St. John refers to these four groups who will reign with Jesus during the millennium as blessed. He uses the word blessed 4 times, and each time he is describing a different group, which you must belong to if you hope to survive into the 1,000 years of peace. Let's look at what these 4 groups stand for. The 15 end-time chapters of the book of Revelation are chapters 6 through 20. And the first time St. John refers to a blessed is in verse 13 of chapter 14. And he says, "I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, 'Write, blessed are the dead who die in the Lord.'" Now those who die in the Lord would be martyrs. And this is one of the 4 groups who will survive. Obviously, if you are captured and you refuse to take the mark, which you must do, that would be one of the 4 groups. Will you be captured? Now let's look at the second group. In chapter 16, verse 15, "Behold, I come as a thief, blessed." This is the second time John has used the word blessed. "Blessed is he that watches and keeps his garments." Now, watching in this case refers to praying. And these are the protected Catholics who pray the rosary. And he keeps his garments, and lest he walk naked and they see his shame. The garment St. John is prophesying about here is Mary's scapular. The Catholics will defeat the Antichrist through Mary's rosary and scapular, but they will do so as they are scattered in the desert. This is where they will be protected. This is one of the 4 groups. Will you belong to this group? Let's look at St. John's third blessed in chapter 19, verse 9. "And he said to me, 'Write, blessed are they who are called to the marriage supper of the Lamb.'" This, of course, refers to those who are raptured. And I believe they will be primarily Protestants. Now, these demarcation lines are not hard and fast. Everyone on earth will be able to qualify for one of these 4 groups, provided you refuse the mark of the beast. And now let's look at the last group of blesseds. In chapter 20, verse 6, "Blessed and holy is he that has part in the first resurrection." The first resurrection refers to those who will survive into the millennium. "Over these the second death," that refers to hell, "has no power, but they shall be priests of God and of Christ." Now this is the key phrase here. God in this case refers to the God of the Old Testament. And of course Christ refers to the New Testament. Therefore, this group of blesseds are the converted Jews, and they shall reign with him 1,000 years. Jesus verifies that there will indeed be 4 groups who survive into the millennium when he talks about them in his Olivet Discourse in Matthew chapter 24. And in verse 15, he says, When you therefore see the abomination of desolation, which was spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. Now we get the word Jew from Judea. And here Jesus is talking about one of the groups who survive, and that is the converted Jews. And let's look at a second group. And let him that is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house. Now I have referred to this many times, that if you are on a housetop and you cannot go down for any other reason, then you must go up. And this, of course, refers to the rapture. In other words, the raptured Protestants. Now let's look at the third group Jesus himself refers to in verse number 18. And let him that is in the field not go back to take his coat. The opposite of a field would be the desert. And this refers to the protected Catholics who must flee from civilization, from opulence or the field, something is green and growing, and into the desert where they will be deprived of all the benefits of civilization. These are the protected Catholics. And now let's look at the fourth group. In verse 19, and woe to them that are with child and that give suck in those days, but pray that your flight be not in winter or on the Sabbath. The key word here is woe, and Jesus is talking about martyrdom. These are those who will be captured. They will be captured because they cannot flee. Pregnant women will have difficulty fleeing. Women who are nursing, or if it's in wintertime, everyone will have difficulty in fleeing. If you have to flee from the Antichrist under those conditions, you will probably be captured. If you are captured, don't forget, you must refuse the mark of the beast. You will be beheaded, but at least you will survive into the millennium as one of the four groups. Now let's look at where these four groups are mentioned in Daniel. In Daniel, chapter number 12. But at that time shall Michael rise up, the great prince, who stands for the children of thy people. Now, of course, Michael, the great prince, would be the archangel Michael. And thy people would be Daniel's people. Therefore, these are the converted Jews. And a time shall come such as never was from the time that nations began even until that time. This is the 7 years of tribulation. And at that time shall thy people, again, Daniel's people, be saved. Now, for those who think that all of Israel will be saved, they forget the next part of this verse. Every one that shall be found written in the book. In other words, not all of Israel will be saved. Only a tiny remnant. These are the converted Jews, those who accept Christ. Chapter 12, verse number 2. And many of those that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake, some unto life everlasting, and others unto reproach, to see it always. Those who sleep in the dust of the earth, of course, are those who are captured. They will be the holy martyrs. Chapter 12, verse number 3. But they that are learned shall shine as the brightness of the firmament, and they that instruct many to justice as stars for all eternity. Now I believe this refers to the raptured Protestants, and he describes them as learned, and I think this is appropriate. Certainly, the study of Bible prophecy is very prominent in Protestant circles. We've seen Daniel describe the captured and the raptured, and also the converted Jews, in other words, Daniel's people. Now let's see where he describes the fourth group, and that would be the Catholics who are protected in the desert, in verse number 7. And I heard the man that was clothed in linen, that stood upon the waters of the river, when he had lifted up his right hand, and his left hand to heaven, and had sworn by him that lives forever, that it should be unto a time and times and half a time. Now this is the 3.5 years, the second half of the 7 years of tribulation. This is what Jesus refers to as the Great Tribulation. And when the scattering of the band of the holy people in this case, refers to the protected Catholics, and the scattering refers that they leave the field. Remember, they left the field and they go into the desert. When that is accomplished, all these things shall be finished. In other words, at the end of the 3.5 years that the Catholics are in the desert, that will also be the end of the 7 years of tribulation. And finally, let's look at Revelation chapter number 11, where John sums up the four groups who survive into the millennium, and he also describes Armageddon. And the nations have been full of wrath. Now, this was the 7 years of tribulation when the nations are at war and the Antichrist is reigning. And thy wrath, so now John is talking about God's wrath, is come. That would be Armageddon. And the time of the dead to be judged and to give recompense. Now, here the word is recompense. I took this from the King James Version. I like the Catholic Douay Bible. It says render reward. And the reward that God is going to render is the 1,000 years of peace, or millennium. To thy servants. The servants refer to the converted Jews. The prophets. The prophets refer to the raptured Protestants. And I think it's typical of Protestants to be very much more interested in prophecy than Catholics. And to the saints. The saints refer to the protected Catholics. And it's interesting that Catholics are interested in saints, in tradition. Most of their churches are named after saints. And to those who fear thy name. These would be the holy martyrs. These would be the captured, as opposed to the raptured. Small and great, and to destroy those that destroy the earth. That refers to Armageddon, where Jesus will send the Antichrist and all of his followers into hell. So in conclusion, please do not listen to the false prophets who try to tell you the entire church will be raptured. That is phony baloney. Only a tiny remnant will be so honored. Jesus refers to the four groups who will survive into the millennium on purpose, because there are four routes to enjoy the 1,000 years of peace. And now, as usual, I want to offer you my free book, Revelation Unraveled. If you write to the address you see at the screen at the end of the program, I will send you a free copy. I do have some bad news. Many of you have not sent me correct addresses, or either I have addressed them wrong. I want to show you something. These are the more than a dozen books that have been returned to me. Now, this is a total waste of my effort and your effort. So please, when you send me your name and address, be very careful. This is a waste of money on my part. I offered the book free. I offer the postage free. But this is very disappointing when I see this. And if you did not receive a book and you ordered one, give me your name and address again, and I will send you another copy. Just send it to the address you see on your screen.